So last week I stated that Kirk Minahan was pushing Mick to come back to the Kirk Minahan show. Kirk said that my commentary was inaccurate. I thought about it, and maybe the discussions about Mick were incorrectly interpreted. It happens. Kirk saying he still has an idea for Mick, while also saying he'll be back multiple times since Mick was last in studio, was probably not an indicator that Kirk wants him back. Maybe I was not understanding the conversation. It happens. For all we know, these could have been confidence boosters to support someone who is struggling. If this is the case, I totally apologize. And Kirk can have fun at my expense, taking some shots at me that were tremendously funny, especially with my joining that select club of getting on the Kirk Minahan death wish list, though dying in a house fire would definitely be painful. It just sucks that Kirk dislikes telling a full story as much as Satan despises holy water. Kirk loves to play the greatest hits to get chuckles from the peanut gallery without disclosing full conversations. We call him Kirky Half Story. For the record, yes, I sent Kirk a message saying that calling me a derogatory term for a person's sexual orientation was uncalled for. I just didn't understand where that came from. It really didn't sit well with me. He asked me if it was accurate, and I responded saying it was not, and it definitely isn't. He followed up and said that neither is my characterization of him and Mick. All true. But what Kirk didn't mention was my response to his DM, where I said, I'll give you that. Maybe I interpreted it wrong. If so, then that's on me, and I take it back. My only point, I guess, is when you keep name-dropping this kid, then you are giving him false expectations. Kirk won't mention this because it hurts his narrative. That DM I sent to him, if he mentions it on the show, would have put that conversation to rest. But Kirk won't share that because then he doesn't have a lot of jokes to make with the peanut gallery. But this is Kirk's MO, so I'm definitely used to it. However, what I did notice is that Kirk changed his tune a bit with Mick, saying now on September 9th that Mick may be back or he might not. This to me is a growth statement by Kirk and a better way to handle things with Mick moving forward. And to be clear, if Mick does come back, he will make a great show even better. He's really good on the show. I like when he's on there. But Mick should only be back if he is healthy to do it both physically and mentally. And not because of peer pressure, which I perceived was going on and is a pattern with Kirk, whether he believes it or not. He did it with me when it came to Cinema Lords, and I felt like he was doing it again now. And if this thought is not correct, then I apologize. And if Mick never comes back, then so what? It's not a big deal either. It was a good run. It's just frustrating that Kirk continues to play the one-sided conversation game, void of full disclosure and without allowing the other person to publicly respond. So I'm inviting Kirk to come on an episode of the Consistency Podcast to have a meaningful discussion about a few topics that we seem to be at odds with since Portland. Call this my Sam Ace Rothstein moment from Casino, where he invites Pat Webb onto Aces High. What are you afraid of, Kirk? Come on to the show. And we don't need Mama K's premonition to know that Kirk will decline this offer and will probably make a bit about it on KMS. They'll definitely have some jokes at my expense, which is totally fine. But the invitation is open. Kirk has said many times he'll go on any network show, so I hope he accepts. It can be done in the middle of this week or after Sacco and Surviving Barstool, as I know Kirk's busy. The ball's in his court. If Kirk were to join me, a question I'd ask him is why he is still so radioactive with the Boston media. Why is it still happening? After leaving WEEI, Kirk became a household name at Barstool with the Kirk Minahan Show, co-hosting the Unnamed Show, and participating in many Barstool-sponsored events like Surviving Barstool, Mini Golf, and the Trivia. If Barstool had a Mount Rushmore, Kirk would be on there, along with Portnoy, Big Cat, and right now, probably Frank the Tank, because he's so popular. Kirk is a household name in the Barstool world and nationally, yet there is silence from the Boston media when it comes to talking about anything positive Kirk has done. President Trump gets more praise from CNN than Kirk does locally. If you type the name Sandra Birchmore into a Google search, then what you'll notice is all of the Boston media is now covering this story, with the Boston Globe taking the biggest bow for Matt Farwell's arrest. But if you Google Sandra Birchmore and Kirk Minahan, you get zero Boston media outlets talking about Kirk's work on the case or giving him credit for the case, except for Turtle Boy, who also gets zero credit from the Boston media for his impeccable work on the Karen Reed case. Kirk and Turtle Boy are the black sheep of the local content world, and there's zero reason for it. I completely don't understand this. Kirk got zero recognition for solving his second murder with the Boston media, but that's not the case nationally, as he was on with TMZ, and he mentioned an upcoming interview with Fox News, which I assume is with Fox News nationally. But again, where's the Boston media? Literally, the only person who broke the code of silence the Boston media has with Kirk is WEEI's Courtney Cox, who mentioned Kirk and the Case podcast on air as she's part of the Greg Hill show. But I'm willing to bet program director Ken Laird and GM Mike Thomas gave Courtney an earful for praising Kirk when the show was done. The Boston media must end their blackout and give Kirk his day's due, as he solved 2 murder cases and is a giant in the podcast world. For him to get zero praise is an injustice. Rodney Dangerfield built a career on no respect, but that was part of his act. The local media giving Kirk no respect on purpose is a cruel joke. What if Kirk broke a national news story? Let's say he found out something wild that President Trump or Kamala Harris did. Would the local media contact Kirk about it, or would they also take credit for this? Sure, Kirk says that none of this bothers him, but it has to burn him inside that the Boston media, who were his colleagues at one point, continue to ignore him. But at this point, who cares? As long as Kirk puts out good content and gives grieving families some solace in solving murders, then this will be better than anything the Boston media can do for him. And Kirk also hinted this week at something big coming up on the horizon that may see him ending KMS sooner rather than later. I think we're all really intrigued as to what this could be. And if it happens, it would be the most amazing middle finger Kirk can give to those people in the local media. It would just be the sweetest of revenge, so I hope something massive happens with Kirk in the next step of his career. Moving on, they say common sense is like a deodorant. The people who need it most never use it. And my money is on Mutt for getting to put on deodorant lately, as his career decisions stink to high heaven. Mutt did himself zero favors on Tuesday's show in his defense of his career path over the last month. And Dave Cullinane did a great job letting him have it. And he and others should continue to do this, as Mutt is 0 for 2 on Mohegan Sun shows, with the second show being far worse than the first. When will Mutt come to his senses and walk away from the show? His stock with Dave Portnoy could not be any higher. So why isn't he doing what he can do to work for Barstool? I would be contacting Portnoy, walking to New York City, talking to people at the Barstool office, getting Kirk on my side. I mean, there are just so many things that you could do to get a job with Barstool, and it doesn't seem that it's going to be very hard because Portnoy wants him. And Kirk said that Mutt didn't have to go to New York or Chicago, but couldn't you see him on a Thursday night football stream every once in a while, chopping it up with Frank the Tank, Rico, Big Evan, the guys? I mean, Mutt would be perfect in that spot. Clemmer's there. He enjoys it. You don't think Mutt would be able to fit right in? Instead, we get him talking with two arrogant and ignorant people in Eton and the Bomber who legit don't care about him. In fact, Eton seems like he dislikes Mutt. And those two guys would whack Mutt from the show without blinking. So why is he staying? Mutt preaches loyalty. But it seems to be just a one-way street. Mutt's loyal to the show, but the guys aren't loyal to him. And it's sad he doesn't see it. As mentioned, the only people Mutt should be loyal to is his family. So there's zero reason for him not to continue with this foolish show. He should just end it. And I don't buy for a second that he didn't listen to last week's TCP. The title of the show was Mutt's Mohegan Sunset. You're meaning to tell me he saw that title and didn't listen? That is like Mama K saying she didn't listen to Wednesday's KMS that was titled Mama's K Premonition. Good or bad, you're going to listen to anything where people are talking about you. So for Mutt to say he didn't listen is bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on it. Of course he listened. Regardless, it's time for Mutt to drop the loyalty act, call Portnoy, and get to work with Barstool. It's time. Overall, I thought it was another great week of episodes on KMS. Obviously, the episode with Blind Mike and Mutt was the best, as you have two all-stars in the studio. But I also enjoyed the episode with John from Warren and Dave, who owns Play It Against Sports. There are a lot of people who are very nervous their first time in studio, and I didn't get that sense with Dave. I don't know if you guys did. He was very knowledgeable about the show and conversational, which is great. And there weren't many prompts from Kirk for him to speak, which is a true sign that Dave felt comfortable in studio. I hope he's in again, as he definitely deserves a second chance. And how could you not laugh at the Mama K episode? Oh my God, that was crazy. And I don't know how Kane wasn't laughing when Kira was telling him the story on his show. And, you know, to be clear, I like Kira. She's a really, really nice lady. I've met her in Portland. I saw her once at a basketball game. She's really, really nice and down to earth. But that interview with Kane and the post on Twitter was comedy at its best. Kirk lives for these moments, and, he definitely had a field day with that one. I mean, it was just so funny. And I think Blind Mike and Cinema did a great job of keeping the jokes going, and, Cinema's definitely, doing a good job in studio. I mean, I think the last 2 or 3 times he's been really good and really conversational, so he's another one who I hope shows up a lot more going forward. But overall, that was definitely a classic episode. And hopefully this will be another good week of shows as the guys gear up for Saco. I won't be there, but I hope those attending have a great time. And unless Kirk accepts my offer to come on the Consistency podcast, then I probably won't record another episode until he's back from surviving Barstool. And good luck. I hope he makes it deep, into the show and, hopefully wins it. That would be great. Until then, stay